Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a crime film from Japan, Japanese language English subs, released in the year 2022, directed by Masato Harada, and this film is called Hell Dogs. So Hell Dogs is about the world of the Yakuza. This Yakuza family are about to be infiltrated by an undercover policeman. Now this policeman has a very traumatic past. He cared for someone dearly who had been murdered by these ruthless criminals who were actually connected to this family. Now these criminals have been found dead as a result, and now the suspicion has been always upon this main character since he left the police force, but they've never been able to convict him of these crimes. And so he's become a little bit of a legend within the world that he is in, and so he's well respected. He's a very brutal man, and this gets the attention of the authorities. And the authorities want to bring down this Yakuza family, but they need someone to get inside there. And so they get this main character to befriend this psychopath who was part of this family in order to gain the family's trust, and he starts to go up the ranks. But the more trust he gets from this family, the more he starts to second guess his allegiances. So who he chooses and whether or not this Yakuza family is going to be stopped is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Hell Dogs. Masato Harada is definitely a Japanese director I hadn't really heard of, and so when it comes to Asian crime films, especially from Japan, you think of Takeshi Kitano and Takashi Miike. And so Masato Harada, what was he going to produce in Hell Dogs? Now my issue with crime films is that it is a very saturated market. It is a very generic market. You know, Martin Scorsese, Casino, Goodfellas, those types of movies, you've seen them in the United States, and a lot of these movies emulate that specific formula. So although you're watching something different, in the end you're watching something very familiar, so it does become very predictable. But Asian crime films, especially from South Korea, do a job at giving you a generic storyline, but giving you characters that you can really invest your interest in. And so you feel as though you're watching something familiar, but at the same time something different. And so whether it's Kim Ji-woon, Hong Ji-na or Bong Joon-ho, these are directors who give you a very familiar premise, but these characters are just very three-dimensional, they're very evolving, and you go on that ride, and so you feel as though you can access a world that is very foreign to you. But then you have these specific films from Takashi Miike and Takeshi Kitano. Yes, they're legendary figures in Japanese cinema, but my problem is that they make characters that are definitely caricature, and so they're cartoonish, and so it doesn't really bring anything new to the table except for ultra-violence. If you like ultra-violence, you're going to like those directors, but that's my criticism of Japanese Yakuza films. They do follow a very familiar formula, and they don't really create a shadow of their own. As I said, the South Korean stuff make characters that you can really relate to and very interesting relationships, whereas these movies, they're all about ultra-violence. And so that was my hesitation coming into Hell Dogs, but I was hoping that it was going to produce something different. And unfortunately, it didn't really produce anything different, but I will say that it is a worthy addition to the Yakuza crime subgenre, because it is watchable. It is a very fun film. I thought the action choreography was fantastic. It was a very brutal film, and it sustained my interest from start to finish. So it's always dangling that carrot to make you follow to where the director wants to take you. And so it goes for 2 hours, and that 2-hour runtime I have a criticism of, but I will say that it never gets boring. And so that's something that you have to applaud. I thought the characters very much larger than life, very reminiscent of Takashi Miike and Takeshi Kitano, where you don't really gravitate to them personally, but you can gravitate to the situation. It's very fast paced, it's breakneck speed, and so it never outstays its welcome, which is something that I can really applaud, because for a 2-hour film it is very difficult to maintain that interest. But I definitely think as though Masato Harada does that. There are twists and turns that complicate the matters. Although those twists and turns have been done before and you can kind of see what's going to happen, I still thought, alright, well, this is a worthy addition to that Asian crime scene. And so if you like this kind of thing, I definitely feel as though this is a movie that isn't going to wow you, it's not going to knock you over, but it's definitely a film that you're going to do a lot worse than. There's movies out there that are a lot worse, and I definitely feel as though this one deserves at least one viewing. But my biggest criticism of this movie is that it goes for 2 hours, but it doesn't use that 2-hour runtime very well. As I said, with those South Korean directors, they give you a very long experience, but an experience that slowly seeps into you. You can actually gain a relationship with the people that you're watching. And so that slow runtime allows you to get that insight into these mentalities of these people. And they're very relatable people, and therefore you can connect to them. And so the emotional connection to those South Korean films is not present in this movie. And so I felt as though it was a very shallow and superficial experience. These characters I've never really cared for. You got that relationship between the main character and this psychopath because it tells you that they're very close. These relationship between a police officer and one of these murdered victims, You knew they were close because they told you they were close. And so if I tell you that I'm best friends with somebody, then okay, you know that I'm best friends with them, but you don't feel that friendship because all I've done is just tell you. And this is what this movie does. It just tells you that these people are close. It just tells you about this situation, but you never really gravitate to that situation because their characters, it doesn't allow you access into these characters. They're very mysterious characters, which makes them very interesting. As I said, it sustains your interest, but you're never really given access into the mentalities. You're not given access into real human beings. All you're seeing is caricature, manga style of characters. And so that for me, I just never really thought as though I got myself into the situation. I thought as the story was going along, there were some moments where it just cut corners. It didn't really want to have the patience to really evolve and spread out these characters, which is something that I was a little bit disappointed with because the 2-hour runtime, I thought, all right, this is going to be a crime film where you can actually access these people, but unfortunately it just doesn't allow you to do that. And so there's a strong level of superficial quality which kind of contradicts the runtime because after a while, although it never gets boring, it starts to get a little bit tiresome by the time it finishes. And I just never really believed what was going on. I always felt as though I was watching a film instead of a real life documentation of, very different people to me and a very different world, but I just couldn't get access into that world. I always felt as though I was watching a cartoon style of action film. And so it's very, very violent. I thought the acting was decent for what it was, but as I said, characters that were very bland. As I said, the interest was there, that the threatened to actually evolve these characters in a very interesting way, but you're waiting for that punch that's going to really elevate the film, but it never really comes. And so it's a movie that has twists and turns, but unfortunately you never really get access into the world that it's creating, and therefore it becomes one-time viewing only and a fairly generic experience. And so overall, for Hell Dogs, give this film 3 stars. Go out there and see it. It's definitely worth it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.